Hey there. Let's talk about how much it will actually cost you to run BigQuery. Spoiler alert, it's way less than you think to get started. Don't freak out just yet. We're going to break it down right now. For the too long did not read version of this module, it rounds to free, so just turn it on. Now, if you want some more details, here you go. The costs are split into two components, storage and compute. Storage is how much you pay to keep and archive the data on Google servers. Compute is how much you pay to query the data and process it. Now, we've set up a cost calculator to help you think through your scenario. It's super simple. The link's in the description, but let's go there now and take a look. Okay, so you get here. Click calculate your cost. Now, let's say you're something like us, where you have 10,000 visitors per day to your web property, and maybe they have 5 events each. They see 5 page views on average. Call that 50,000 daily events. You can check this by going to GA4 in the engagement report, in the engagement section, selecting the events report and looking at the total by day. Go look at a month and take about what the average is. Okay, so if you run this calculation, that costs 9 cents. Now I know what you're thinking, Mike, that sounds pretty expensive. And you're right, there are some optimizations. If you choose the physical bytes storage billing model, which is not the default, instead of the logical bytes storage billing model, which is the default, check this out. Now we can get down to less than 1 cent per month. Okay, joking aside, that's why I say it's essentially free to turn on, because the storage, the only thing that's a guaranteed cost, is almost nothing. Just for kicks, try something like 10 million events per day. That only costs $3.65. Okay, now let's go take a look at the compute cost. This is where the rubber hits the road. Every time you run a query in the BigQuery interface, or if you're connecting BigQuery to your BI tools like Looker Studio or Tableau, that's where the cost will come in. And don't forget, if you're scheduling processing of the data daily, if you're automating queries that you run regularly, that can add up too. But remember, this is only if you're running those queries. You'll pay only for storage until you start querying the data. So let's do a little bit of estimating. Let's imagine that you once in a while log in and write some SQL to make a query that's more difficult than you can answer in the GA4 interface by default. What might that cost you? Let's go back to 50,000 events per day. That might cost you 25 cents. Now, most folks that end up doing this, that end up storing the data in BigQuery, start stacking some reports on top of BigQuery, and their teams end up preferring these reports over the GA4 interface. At least that's our experience. What would that cost you? So to connect your BI to BigQuery, now you're at about $1 per month. This is when people really start to get value out of their data, is when they realize that they can join other data sources like costs from ads, CRM records, Search Console, and otherwise. Maybe you have some custom audience definitions that you create and update as the new data comes in daily. How much does it cost to reprocess that data every day? Now you're into that $5 per month range. So overall, your cost might be $5.25. Now, these costs assume that you're running some pretty optimized queries. There are definitely some ways to screw it up and rack up more costs than that. We're going to cover some of the tips and tricks to making efficient queries in a later video, but hopefully this gives you a picture of the costs, encourages you to move forward with getting that connection turned on, because remember, every day that goes by that it's not turned on is a day you don't have the data there and you don't get it retroactively. Okay, moving on to the next video. See you on the other side.